Hi, I'm Neil from the Screens and welcome to Songwriters Lounge. Today I'm going to talk to you about our new album, The Boy Who Waved at Trains, and the lead single, which is also called The Boy Who Waved at Trains. There's the album cover there. I'll tell you a bit about how it was written and the process behind our production. So The Boy That Waved at Trains is our second album. Our first one was Wakes, Weddings and Bar Mitzvahs. That was released just the end of 2017. And when we made this second album, we sort of laid out two criteria. First criteria was that there'd have to be a market here for us to record it. We didn't just want to make an album that was a vanity project for us, put it out in the market, nobody buys it, it's just a waste of time, waste of energy. So what we did was we did a Kickstarter campaign, and for those people that bought the first album, we invited them to pre-order the second one, and if we got enough people that wanted to hear a second album, we'd make it. Fortunately enough, we did. So that was the first criteria fulfilled. The second criteria was, with our first album, we're 60s inspired as a band. We like bands like the Zombies, and what we didn't want to do was make an album of random songs that all sound kind of right, but there's no cohesion between the first song and the last song. We really like the concepts of things like Quadrophenia and Tommy by The Who. So what we wanted was a story that would start with the first song and end with the last song. So a whole theme. So if people that were listening to the album could follow it, and there would be some relevance to each song. So the point of us having a story about the album, it kind of fell in our laps, because around the same time we were trying to come up with something that we thought would be interesting, a really good friend of ours who was just about to leave home, go to university, he came out as gay to his parents, and it was a big step for him, and his parents rejected him, in particular his father, and it sent him into a bit of a spin, downward spiral. He attempted suicide 3 times and was eventually sectioned, and we couldn't quite believe that in 2019 people still thought that that would be a problem. His dad was archaic in his thoughts about having a gay son. So that inspired our story. But that we're 60s inspired in our music, we thought we'd take it back to late 50s post-war London and base it on a working class family where a son is born and he comes out as gay to his parents and they reject him. And it's the unfolding of his life, going through West End London, seedy nightlife, illegal as it was at the time to be homosexual until the decriminalisation in the late 60s, and how his life might have played out. So we took a real story and we made it fictitious but very, very plausible, and probably played out a lot of people's lives at the time. So that was the criteria for the story. So in terms of recording this album, on our first one we had quite a few pro players coming into play that we know, and what that does is it gives you a great sounding record, but maybe we lost the identity of the Screens. It's really difficult to tell a great bass player that perhaps you don't want it that complicated, you want it more simple, the sound is a bit too polished, that sort of stuff. I think when you make a record as a band, you want it to sound like the band, and we made a huge mistake by bringing in really talented people because it just took our sound away. So that was criteria for how we'd record this one. So we did all the music here, with the exception of Rich's drums, which he did at his own studio, and then with vocals, because the album's called The Boy Who Waved at Trains, and there was a story there, we decided we'd hire this Victorian railway carriage up in Suffolk. It sleeps 2 or 3 people. It's tiny. There's no TV there. There's no internet. It's so isolated. It's in the middle of a field. We took a MacBook Pro, our microphones, headphones, and we camped up there for a week. No distractions at all. We did lyrical rewrites while we were there. We really lived the album, and the most important part of any record is the vocal. It really is the most important part, and the education for me on this album was actually not only the vocal and the melody behind it, but the lyrical content. So we worked hard in situ while we were there, bouncing vocal ideas around, bouncing the lyrical ideas around, and it paid homage to the story of the album. So that's what we did. Sounds a little bit kind of up our own backsides, but it helped us get from a basic idea to a finished project. So that's how we did it. I think by us playing all the instruments ourselves, what we gained was that we kept the sound that we wanted. We lost professionalism in performance, but we gained that, and as a finished record, that's what we wanted. Mixed it here. This is really good, you know. I managed to use this. I bought extra monitors this time around. Last time I just used NS10s. This time I bought the Tannoys, which gave me a good reference point. The soft tube console thing is great. If you're used to mixing hands-on, it's really good. Thoroughly recommend that. Quite a few plugins. And I just took my time. I would profess to be, you know, a great mix engineer. So what we went for was a sound as opposed to a technical, perfect piece of work. And I hope we achieved that. I think one of the most enlightening things that we've learnt from this album, as opposed to the first one, was that we tried so hard with the first album to write 10 great songs, individual pieces of work. Well, that's a modern concept to writing. When years ago, bands would approach an album from the point of, as it being called a record, it's a record of what happens when they go into a studio. It's not necessarily 10 hit singles, it's songs that evolve from, you know, playing in a studio for 4 months. Someone gets an idea off the back of a previous song. So we tried to do that with this album. We didn't pressure ourselves into every song being a really hooky chorus. It had to tell a part of the story. So the lyrics would dictate the mood of the piece, and if you listen to the album, it takes you on a journey, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted people to listen to the album and it take them on the journey that we'd created. We decided, because it's a story and it really is a detailed story, videos would only tell part of it. So we wrote a short story, 120-page book, which takes the flesh of the story and expands upon it. It makes it a much bigger entity. So the book goes with the album. If you listen to the album and you wonder, well, there's bits that you need to join up in the story, by reading the book, it takes you through the whole story. It would have been too big a video to make. So that was something, I don't know whether or not we do that again, it just suited this project. It was a story from the first song to the last song, so that's why we did that. Thanks for letting me bore you for the last 4 or 5 minutes. Thanks to Tom and everyone at Songwriters Lounge. The album's called The Boy That Waved at Trains with the Screens, and if you get a second, check it out. Thanks so much.